Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Barking Dogs. I mean, Parallel Barkings.
Yes.
Oh, woof, woof. I'm here, Larry Becker, with my daughter, Ariana. Woof a
Hello.
little bit.
Bark, bark.
Yeah, two barkers here, but hopefully we're going to do something. We've been kind of on a downer recently, the last couple of weeks, and rightly so. The news has not been, how shall we put this, uplifting. But we figured we would give our audience a little bit of a break by talking about things that we know that everyone loves to talk about, and even more to watch on TV, and that is sex, violence, and money. So we're going to be
Yes.
talking about it, but especially the violence is kind of more abstract, although not according to the plaintiff, right? But certainly there's going to be a lot of sex and a lot of
Emotional violence, we could call it,
Right.
maybe.
Well, certainly after she got the news. But so we're going to talk about sex and money. And so what we're going to talk about is, and in the process, we're going to do what I love to do, is that is to make fun of the press and press organs. And I'm going to make fun of them because, like many people on earth, it appears that having learned to read does not mean that you can understand the things you either mouth or write. And so
Also,
we have a
learning to
funny here.
read doesn't mean you read the whole thing. So you read half.
Well, no one does that. And that's the constant with my students, especially when you've got a statute that's half a page long. You'll read to where you think you got the answer, you drop off the last 15 lines, and then you get in trouble. But this is even worse. This is even worse. And of course, there are, and I'm not going to mention any names of press organs. It doesn't matter. They're all fungible. The only difference is the human who's writing it and the political beliefs they believe they have. And even that, if you look at it, if you interrogate it closely, is all a bunch of just kitsch slogans that they put together, and then they believe that they actually believe something. But
Okay,
that's
the anticipation is killing me. What is this?
This is a different. I know, you see, sex and money.
Yes,
always
exactly.
All right. So the news organs are reporting not quite correctly, but everyone thought it was amusing because it's not only sex and money, but sex and money and what do you call the person that supports sex, but not a voyeur, a sugar daddy. It's
or
sex,
sugar
money,
mama.
right,
Let's
right.
be
Or a
sugar
facilitator,
person.
or a facilitator. So we have a complete
facilitator.
right. So we have a complete dysfunctional relationship. And if this was a telenovela, it would be a lot more fun than it is. And it's going to get dreary, but here we go. So a number of press organ outlets have been talking about how Geico, which is a large insurance carrier in the US, is now made to pay a Missouri woman a little over $5 million. Now, I'm not gendering, the news organs are. So if you've got a beef about the gendering, that's yet another podcast. We'll do that later. So I'm going to assume the gender and the gender roles that
this is something that the woman has claimed herself. So
well, that she
moving
claims
on.
to be a woman as well. And I'm not going to go there because I'm just going to accept this. So Geico is to pay a Missouri woman $5 million after she, it's not alleged anymore. It's been proven at least to the satisfaction of the court. Whether it's true or not, it no longer matters. The court says it's true, and for purposes of the $5 million, it is. All right, so she's got to pay $5 million after she allegedly got an STD, and not just any old STD. We're not talking about good old fashioned, what's it called?
Crabs.
Syphilis, gonorrhea. What's the other one? Chlamydia. Is that
herpes?
It? Yeah, it's not any of that. She's got something that's actually really bad in the context of this, and she got the
human papilloma virus.
That's right, the human papilloma virus. So really bad.
But how and where? This is the most important part.
That is the most important part. And unless you are 16 and 17 years old, probably the less appealing part, especially as your back gets less versatile than it might have been when you were 16 or 17. Mm-hmm. She acquires this eternal remembrance of her several minutes of passion while engaging in sex in a car. And
Yes,
not
but
just any old car, but a car insured by
Geico.
Geico.
Do we know what kind of car it was? That's
No, I wish we did.
I know.
We could go into the records and check because, you know, if certainly at my age, if I were going to engage in this, it'd have to be at least a Bentley. But at 16,
at least
16,
with
right, at least a
your
right,
size.
right. At 16, it would just have to have 4 wheels and maybe work more or less more often than not.
Yeah.
But anyway, so that's the story. But the story is both true and false. It is unbelievably misleading, but also a morality tale about the way in which money plays a role in both sexual relations and the way in which human beings assess risk, assuming that they're even thinking with something other than their nether body parts at the time that they engage in these activities. So there's a lot here that one can derive from what the press thought was a PG rated rendition of a lurid factual situation where sugar bags, that is Geico, is going to wind up having to pay the price of the momentary passion of this woman and apparently someone who genders himself male. And that's the story. So that's the story, and everyone's going, oh, Twitter, 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 and now Geico's going to have to pay, and so now auto insurers are going to have to ensure that they're insured are STD free, I guess, if they're going to engage in sex.
Or at least let their partner know beforehand.
Or at least assuming that they know, or what is much more likely, and I want to get this out of the way now, the biggest value of this case is that after the press gets it wrong, and we're going to talk about why it's wrong in a second, after the press gets this wrong, every legal department of every insurance company worth its salt is likely going to be adding an addendum to their insurance contract, which will basically say something along the lines, but in legalese, if you do the deed, or you do the preparation for the deed, or if you do something that mimics the deed, or if you in any way sort of engage in the
we are in no way liable.
I'm a lawyer, so you know you're going to add this thing is not going to be like no sex in car, or if you have sex in car, you're not going to get a payout from us.
I want to see the signs for that.
It's going to be at least a page long describing not only the deed, right, but all acts or preparations around it, including tongues, fingers.
Yes, I want the visuals.
You know, the blah 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 blah. They're going to go into detail. Well, these lawyers are on retainer. They might as well go ahead and earn their keep.
Why not?
That is going to be added to insurance contract. Right. So that's the bottom line. After all of this, this is your one free pass. Right, get out of jail free, pass go, collect $200, or in this case, $5.2 million. And it's the last time it's going to happen, because there's not going to be an insurance company worth its salt that is not going to now write this extraordinarily tedious and unreadable provision that effectively says if you do anything that even smells like the deed in the car, it ain't covered.
I mean, these people are like, yeah, this was a great idea. Thank God we thought of it first.
Right. And now, to their credit, many of the press organs' description of the lurid story, right? And it's not the lurid story, but it's a kind of Twitter. And I don't mean the agency, like ha 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 ha.
Yes.
This is kind of a naughty story that you tell your grandma and she blushes, kind of thing, but it's still kind of PG. They included a link to the decision.
Yes. Which is your favorite.
Which is my favorite part, right? So all I do, which is why I'm blind. So rather than read the story again, and the stories are just, my God, American journalistic English, but that's a different story. No one can read my stuff. So I'm the last person on earth to complain. But anyway, so they got the opinion. Right? And in the context of this, but before we get there, Ariana,
yes.
what was your sense before you read the opinion and you read the press coverage? What was going through your mind?
I was thinking, oh my, this is a whole new ball game. I can't believe that an insurance company would be responsible for something like this. I have to read this.
Now you see, that shows the difference in age. When you first sent me this story, the first word that came to my mind was condom. And I'm thinking, are these people, all right, are these people 16 years old?
That's more like a duh. Like,
well,
all right,
except apparently not.
You decided to do that. You're past that. Now you got to blame somebody, get some money. But why this wasn't thrown out in the first place? I'm just very, how did they get past that first phase? Is kind of where,
because there's this weird thing going on in this country too. The lawyers, especially tort lawyers, have been dealing with this for about 400 years. And that is a question about the way in which you can use these court cases to shift risk as a matter of law. Society may have a sense of who ought to bear the risk.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
But
do they
social expectations and legal expectations they usually sort of align, but they may not always. And especially when you're dealing in an area where this is relatively new. 70 years ago, you would have been too embarrassed to bring any of this stuff up, right? But now we're in the era of sort of regulated but freer love, right? And so these things now come up. The question really is, well, who ought to bear the risk? What is risk shifting going on here? Is this really the kind of risk where we're okay with compensating people if they make a mistake, which means that we don't really care if you do it or not, as long as you're willing to pay the price. So
think about the premiums, people.
Right, this is a variation of, well, I guess I shouldn't eat these nasty tacos made with something that I'm allergic to, but I really love the taste, so I'm going to eat it because I know that I can ameliorate it somehow, or mitigate it, or get something. Right. So and in this case, there's a third party, right? And that's what makes this really interesting. So you've got two people whose judgment was lapsed because apparently it was their nether regions rather than their brains that were engaged at the time of coitus. Right. But that was okay, because at least, if not in the front of their minds, at least after the fact, it was clear that, well, maybe there's a way that we can shift the risk, right, of the resulting damage. And who are we going to shift the risk to? If they were 14 years old, you could shift it to your parents.
Right.
And we're so used to risk shifting in every respect. And it's time honored. And I'm not saying anything bad about risk shifting. It's just sometimes its strategic consequences can produce howlers like this. Right. And sometimes it shouldn't, but so they're going to shift the risk after the fact. Now, notice that's the other thing about risk shifting. So you can shift the risk, or you can manage the risk before the nasty is done, or you can set up a risk environment and a risk shifting environment that kicks in after the deed is done. Right. So in the international area, especially in new fields, the mantra for the last 15 years has been notions of prevention, mitigation, and remedy, in that order. And so risk is then aligned to the notion that the first thing is, you're dealing with remedies that come from failing to prevent and failing to mitigate. And then if all else fails, you do this. But older is the notion that, we don't care.
Let's be reactive.
Right, let's be reactive. Right, and reactive is time honored as well, and that's what you see here. But now you're doing it in a Twitter kind of, oh, it involves sex, and so it's like sex and excretia still tend to get a laugh or get everyone to blush.
Yes, just like whatever. Potty jokes, of course.
But, yeah, so that was interesting. But yeah, it was condom for me, and it was not for you.
No, it really was how did this get as far as it did? But the opinion,
bless their lawyers. I mean,
yes, the opinion definitely told the story a lot better than any of
hey,
news
systems
outlets.
are systems. Systems are systems. And if systems and societies permit this, however, it may not align with social expectations at some level. There you
really-
go. And if you don't like it, the last thing on earth that you ought to be doing is pontificating about it. You should be managing the system. But we like to have it all ways. So we'll pontificate about it because we know that it'll have no effect. People will continue to do the nasty, and insurance companies continue to sit. And then you'll have courts who may be willing.
Well, we should explain why it's not really, the news outlets aren't really correct. Why she might not get 5.2 million.
Well, she might not, but certainly at this stage, it is possible for her to get it. And now let's go through the timeline so that our listeners can understand why it's still possible, although it's not a sure thing. That's where the press is wrong. There's a possibility that they'll get it, but it's not a sure thing yet. A couple of things have to happen beforehand, and there's no guarantee.
Yeah, the timeline was like a ping pong ball of.
Right. But it's worth going through so that you can see why this complexity, although anyone can read this, but it doesn't show up in the press accounts, because now we're going into, well, this is too hard to understand without explaining it, which is why you need a 30-minute podcast to get to the stupid facts. And so I'm not going to bother. And it doesn't really matter because people are going to pay 30, at most, like 10 or 15 seconds to the story, go, oh, ha, ha, ha. I have a visual image of two nasty people doing the nasty in some nastier car.
That's all you need.
The insurance company paying, ha, 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 and I've had my funny for the day. All right, so here's the deal. The nasty was done in November of 2017. Now, it doesn't tell us how many times there was an exchange of bodily fluids. It doesn't tell us whether the exchange of bodily fluids occur. Well, if we're going to be, if we're going to be clinical about this, we're going to be clinical.
Hold up. It says in November, that's when they began the romantic relationship.
Which means that the nasty may have occurred more than, but in the car.
They said they alleged between November and early December of 2017. That is when they engaged in unprotected sexual activities.
When?
In the insured vehicle.
So they only did this once?
Oh, no. The sexual activities between November and early December. That is
so
they
had multiple incidents of sexual activity.
Yes.
Right. Including the exchange of bodily fluids so that we can have the transmission of this horrible STD. Yeah. Right. And did they all occur in the car?
Let's see.
It's not clear.
Oh, no. Yes. Activities in insured's vehicle.
All of them?
Yes.
All of them?
That's what it says.
At this point, I'd almost be willing to have given them like $70 and told them, why don't you get a proper room somewhere?
Don't
at least once. At least once. Well, on the other hand, you're right. People are funny. And for some people, the only way that they can really enjoy coitus is in a car, because they may have some psychological connection to it. It may have been the happiest moment of their lives or something. So
okay, back to the timeline.
All right.
Back
so
to the
sometime in 2017, at least once, and this is important in a sense, because if they did this 40 times, and they did this 40 times in all kinds of places, parks, bedrooms, living room, kitchen floors, we've all seen the movies, right? And only one time in a car, you'd have to ask why it was that in the proceedings that went against Geico, because Geico wasn't insuring them when they were doing this in the forest, right? Or on a kitchen table, only in the car.
But if they had the package with insuring the house and the car, then I could totally see that.
Or I guess if they used the car to drive to the forest where they engaged in coitus, then the car was a pre-transmitter transmitting vehicle.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So it might as well have been the instrument used to transmit the STD into the nether regions of the woman.
It aided and abetted.
I'm not using the technical terms. I know the ghost of my mom is sitting in the back saying, if you dare use any of the nasty words, I will just make it impossible for you to sit down or use your mouth, because I'm going to
say, what is that crap coming out of your mouth?
I can't get mom out of my head. No, okay, mom, I will behave. All right.
Said
But
that to
anyway,
me, too.
so there's an issue of causation, which apparently didn't trouble anyone but us.
No,
And
every
there's a
time
question.
it was in the car. Every time.
Wow. All right. Where's Freud when I need him? But anyway, so they've done it in 2017. In 2021, February, and here's where it gets interesting. So there's a little bit of time between the act and the lawsuit, but that makes perfect sense. There's not going to be like lights or an announcement from the heavens saying, boop, congratulations, or sorry, you've now been infected. Right. It's going to take time and blah, blah, blah. So it's not surprising that from the end of 2017 to the beginning of 2021, which isn't all that much time, right? It's 2021. We start with this this thing, a very interesting thing. The person who was infected at the end of February submits to Geico a petition that she intends to file against Geico and to basically a final settlement offer to resolve her claims against the insured, the man, against Geico. So at the end of February, apparently some stuff has gone on between the woman and the man. There's some discussion of which we don't know, but all of this culminates at the end of February. She comes up with a copy of the petition, which she sends to the insurance company saying, look, I'll make you a settlement offer of $1 million. If you settle this now and pay me $1 million, I'll go away because of my claim against you, because I got my STDs in the car that you insured, but you weren't the agent of transmittal. This guy was, but he was your insured. This petition then attached a settlement offer that alleged that during November and early December, they engaged in unprotected sexual activity in the vehicle. They don't mention whether they had other sexual activity. And during this period, the guy negligently caused or contributed to HPV infection because apparently he knew, or you would have had to have been.
Yes, they had
you'd have to be
established
completely reckless
that
not
he
to know.
knew
Right,
that
he
he
knew at the
had
time
it
that he
and
was
just
engaging in
didn't
sexual activity.
disclose.
Right.
So then in April, Geico decides.
Right. So this is in the end of February, and then it takes about a month. And in April, Geico does what?
Denies.
It does two things. One, it denies. It says, no, I'm going to deny coverage. So, thank you for this notice, but no, it's not covered under our policy. And then immediately goes to federal court and files what is known as a declaratory judgment action, which is an action permitted under many state laws, but also under federal law that seeks, in a situation like this, a declaration by a court about the meaning, in this case, of a contract. In this case, it's a contract of insurance, and they want the question, does the contract as written cover this, damages resulting from this? So they filed this at the beginning of April. Unbeknownst to Geico, who denies coverage at the beginning of April for the end of February thing, unbeknownst to them, at the beginning of March, the woman who sent that pay me $1 million or go away letter at the beginning of February, at the beginning of March, she and the guy enter into it's a Missouri case, enter into what they call an 065 agreement, which essentially is an agreement between them that says that if they go ahead and litigate this thing, that the plaintiff will limit her recovery to the maximum amount of coverage under the guy's insurance policy, that is Geico's coverage. So he does this, Geico doesn't know they can do it, but you can do this under Missouri law, right? And in the process, they also decide to arbitrate this thing. So it doesn't go into court, it goes into an arbitration. That arbitration occurs in May. So we get February, we got the notice, pay me $1 million. In March, we get this agreement by the two parties, which Geico only knows that they got $1 million offer on the table. In March, they enter into this 065 agreement, ultimately leading to arbitration. In April, Geico says, I don't owe you anything, and then files a declaratory judgment action in federal court. And then in May, right? In May, the guy and the two of them, the woman and the guy, arbitrate. They go into arbitration. They have the arbitration, and then as a result of that, the arbitrator issues the award. So on March 11th, they do this. On March 17th, they arbitrated the claims, and the arbitrator issues his findings, and the findings were that you had sex. The sex occurred in the car. As a result of the sex, you got HPV, and he should have known better. And because it occurred in the car, then you are going to, Geico is going to have to pay. Right. So this occurs then in May, on May 17th. On May 24th, the woman who was the plaintiff provides written notice to Geico that they enter into the 065 agreement. So notice, they enter into the 065 agreement in March. Don't tell Geico. They arbitrate at the beginning of May after she gets her award. Only after she gets her award, she goes and then she says, oh, by the way, Geico, we've had this arbitration and we have this deal, and now you owe me some money. And then on June 10th, and immediately after she sends this notice on May 24th, she files an action in court. That's the first court action in state court, right? Now the plaintiff, the defendant, the guy probably knows that there's a declaratory judgment action. He may or may not have told her, so she may or may not have known about this, but there's no communication anywhere going on here. So at the end of the arbitration, she sends Geico the notice, hey baby, guess what, I won an arbitration. And then just a couple of weeks after that, she files a lawsuit. And Geico doesn't tell Geico that she files a lawsuit. Geico claims that they discovered the existence of this lawsuit because, since they're an insurance company, they actually monitor this website called case.net.
Yes.
And in following this platform that basically puts out all the actions that are being filed.
Oh, look, we're being sued.
Oh, wow, we're being sued. And then on June 18th, they intervene, and then all of this occurs after that in June of 2021. Then in July, they filed the action, and then this decision, which is the one that was reported, comes out in June of 2022. So all of this occurred in 2021. All of the fun and games occurred last summer, and then they filed an appeal. It goes on September 8th. The trial court denied all the motions, entered the judgment, and then the Geico appeals, claiming error, and here we go on the appeal. Right, so that case becomes very interesting. So in the case, right, what we wind up seeing is a couple of things, and I'm sorry to take so long to work through it, but a couple of things make this really interesting. One is that the underlying action was arbitrated, and they used the Missouri law quite strategically. Geico can't really say that they are absolutely unaware of the action. They were put on notice. This was very smart by sending to Geico this notice, hey baby, pay me $1 million and I'll go away. The minute that happens, it's going to be very hard for them to say, oh, I had no idea that my insured is going to do this or that they're going to do this. I don't know what the communication is between Geico and the insured, but at this point, Geico would have to know that maybe I should watch this, right? Even though they went ahead and filed a declaratory judgment action. I guess they thought, well, everyone's going to wait on us while we go and get the interpretation of the action.
That's ridiculous. You need to watch that.
Right, and then they do this agreement. Whether Geico knew about the agreement or not is a problem, and then they arbitrate. And by arbitrating this, of course, it kind of goes off the radar. It's not clear whether, I guess Geico could have intervened in that. Whether or not they did is an interesting issue here, and we really don't know enough about the facts. But in this case, right, what they wound up doing by doing that, the man and the woman, since he already had the agreement that, look, I'm only going to be liable up to my insurance coverage, his incentive to really defend, yeah, it changes. Is it better? Is it worse? We don't really have enough facts to know. But you wonder about this. I'm still wondering about causation. If this was a one-time coital act, is very different than if they were, again, just engaged in multiple, but that's a different story. But now they go ahead and they arbitrate the substance. That is that, in fact, they had sex in the car, and that as a result of the sex. So all of the issues, the causation issues, the citing issue, all of that is decided in this arbitration case. And once it's decided, right? And then what you're going to do in court is to get your arbitration award enforced, right? Now, at this point, of course, what Geico can do, Geico is going to want to try to undo the substantive thing, because, I mean, they're trying to defend this. That's probably going to be a bit of a loser, but maybe not. But at the same time, what they want this thing is to stop. And I'm surprised they wanted to stop long enough so that the federal action can be resolved. Because in fact, if the federal court says, hey, your insurance, your contract doesn't cover this, game over, right? But to do that, you would think that they would want to, and perhaps what they should have done was seek to stay proceedings in the arbitration until the federal action was done. And that would have required a bit of coordination between the federal and the state courts. And there's a set of procedures to do this.
But I don't think they took it seriously, is what I'm thinking at first.
I'm thinking you're right. But the case,
they didn't manage the risk appropriately. The insurance company did not manage their risk appropriately.
Right. And in a sense, perhaps that's what the state court was doing. They're sort of slapping Geico and saying, you know, you think that you can run off to a federal court and get this done and just ignore us. Hey, hello.
Mm-hmm. Well, and you know, the way the federal courts have been acting recently, I don't know if they would, you know, react much differently. I think they too.
Well, I mean, they're stuck. No one now. Understand that in all of this action in the Missouri courts, no one was actually litigating the terms of the insurance coverage. All they were litigating was the underlying substantive claim. Did you have sex? Did you have sex in the car? Was the sex the product? Was the sex the cause of the transmission of the STDs?
Which is really interesting.
Right. But what Geico is trying to argue here is, hey, you know, this is cool. You know, God bless them. They had sex. Really feel bad. The guy was, you know, expletive. He, you know, he really should have told her, oh, and by the way, the elephant in the room is, where's Mr. Condom? But again, I'll put that on the side. But that's only half the thing for Geico. The real question is, well, what do the words in the contract say, and how is it going to be interpreted? And that was not the subject of this. So getting back to where we started, so this news coverage then is kind of sort of half right to some extent. If things go really bad in federal court, they may wind up having to pay because they were out lawyered and they were careless, right, in the underlying claim. More interesting is I'm really curious to know just how much communication and strategic decisions were made between the man and the woman versus the insurance company. And that goes back to our risk allocation thing. Not that they are colluding. I'm not making any allegations. No. But seriously, because
it would be interesting
your incentives would be different. And while you do want to protect your interest with insurance is going to be defended in different ways than your interest if your life and your income depended on it.
That's absolutely right. It's just really odd to me that the terms of the contract weren't brought up at all, but maybe that's
Well, that wasn't the issue. The issue they were quite right.
Not even the
issue
coverage?
No, the issue was the underlying claim. Then they're going after the company right now. Again,
But would the
court
claim have to do
but-
with the coverage of the contract?
But remember, the court made that very clear in its opinion, where they essentially said, look, we did the underlying claim. We still do not have resolved, and we're going to have to wait for the federal court. And this is a decision.
That's
We're going to have to
true.
wait for
That's
the federal court to decide whether the contract covers this kind of thing, so that effectively we're setting all of this up so that what we're doing is, if in fact Geico's coverage includes this, then everything else is done. And now the only thing that's left is Geico's going to have to blow $5.2 million because they may not have taken this as seriously as they
should have.
Right. But no, they were very careful about that. And so the decision again becomes really interesting. And again, why the double claim? But anyway, so I think we have beaten this horse. What do you get out of all of this? So what's the moral of the tale? And we'll end with that, I guess.
The moral
Yeah.
for me is, if you're an insurance company, manage your risk, all of your risk, appropriately.
Okay. And the moral of the story for me is, this is a $5.2 million lesson to Geico about what it is they should be putting in their insurance contract.
Oh, and also I can't wait to see the new insurance contracts.
Oh my God. Oh, spare us. Give me some garlic. It's worse than fearing a vampire.
I'm gonna be looking for that small print. So.
All right. But remember this, all right, all of you, look at your insurance contract before you go off and do things you will regret.
Do the naughty in
Condoms.
car.
Condoms. Okay. Woof, woof.
Bark, bark, and
Until next time.
we'll talk to you next time, everyone. Thanks.